Any more?
Good. All right. This thing is on you.
I hope so.
As I said before, I'm not doing this for videos. You know what I'm saying? It's the people that are here. As I look at my phone. We're good? We're on? Action. Okay. So let's do it. All right. So, when we started learning the base management for Mishpitz, so we started before Purim, whatever it is. So as we sort of travel through the Purim season, so I did the best I could to sort of continue with that flow of the base management for Mishpitz, from beginning and weiter, but connecting each one to the tkufa, the time that we're in. So I'm going to try to continue to do that. Maybe it will take us till Pesach, but so tonight we're going to move on to again. Again. My intention is that each one of these shiurim should be self-contained, understood by itself without needing too much background. But those that haven't, sort of been with us in the beginning of this whole limud, certainly this is sort of the next step of it. But connected to the time that we're in right now between Purim and Pesach, getting ourselves ready for Pesach. So we'll begin like this. There's I've been quoting this. We haven't seen it inside yet, but I've been quoting it already for some time. A Torah from Rabbi Nachman that one to appreciate Pesach, one has to see it as part of a process that began on Purim. So take a look, you'll see what I mean. So Marmukah number 1. So Sefer Likutei Moharan is in Chelik Beis, Siman Ayin Daled, and specifically when we get to this week, we know that this Shabbos, I think, right? Unless I'm mistaken, this Shabbos Parshas Parah, right? Okay. So Parshas Parah. So we learned about Paraduma, the red heifer that was used to purify someone that became contaminated to a dead body. And the reason why we do that before the month of Nisan is, again, back in times of the Beis Hamikdash, to bring a Karban Pesach, you need to make sure you're a tar. So we need to get the word out to remind people to purify themselves. Now, if we're still reading it to this day, when that's unfortunately not relevant nowadays without Moshiach, without the Beis Hamikdash, so clearly there has to be something else involved. That somehow the paraduma is, spiritually speaking, conceptually speaking, a concept that one needs to go into Pesach. But that idea of paraduma, as we're going to see in a moment, not only is our entrance into Pesach, it's also coming from Purim as well. So it's sort of the bridge between the two worlds of Purim and Pesach. So Rabbi Nachman writes like this: Achar Purim, after Purim, Karim Parshas Parah. We lay in Parshas Parah. Shuachon lePesach. Parshas Parah is the Hachan, it's a preparation for Pesach. Why? Ki Parshas Parah Karin Kedei Shiur Nizharin L'Tahar Metumas Meis. Right? Because as I said before, we lay in Parshas Parah to remind ourselves to purify ourselves from any contamination. Kedei Shiur Tarin L'Asas Pesach, in order that we should be able to bring the Karban Pesach. Ubetchila. Now, fine. So therefore, in a certain sense, obviously, Parah is an introduction, is a hachana, preparation for Pesach. Ubetchilahu bechinas pur. But where does paraduma come from? So Nachman says paraduma does not come out of nowhere. Paraduma is a creation from Purim. What starts off as pur, right? The girl that Haman draws, and that's the name Purim. Ki Purim al shem hapur. Ve'achar kach nasa para. So the pur of Haman, the girl of Haman, is Purim, and that turns into para. We know pur, Pei Vav Reish, and Para, Pei Reish Hey, is the same gematria plus the Kaila, which is always what you're able to do. Kigam Purim, hu bevadei hilach v'derech lePesach, because Purim has to be seen as a preparation, as a hachana for Pesach. So something is going on that in order to have Pesach, you need Paraduma, but Paraduma is itself coming from Purim. So Purim turns into Paraduma, which then prepares us for Pesach. Okay, so you have to figure out what that means exactly. Okay. Put that to the side, we'll get back to it. All right, so when it comes to Pesach B'chlal, there's a general rule, a concept you have to appreciate when it comes to Pesach, which is that Pesach should not be seen as a redemption of the first exile we had as a people. Okay, we were in Mitzrayim, we get out of Mitzrayim, okay, and we celebrate that, finished. And then it happens to be, we went into other exiles, we got out of those, and Bez Hashem will get out of this one too. Happens to be, it's just the first Gula. It's not like that. Yitzias Mitzrayim has to be seen as the seed from which all future redemptions develop. Mitzrayim itself was, in a certain sense, not just the first exile, but the rashis, the seed, an exile that contains within it all future exiles. And Yitzias Mitzrayim is a redemptive energy that contains within it all future redemptions as well. Which is, we say this in davening every day. And Marmukah number 2 in Ma'ariv, a little bit of chakras as well. We say V'yotzis Am Yisrael, that Hashem took us, the Jewish people, out of Mitzrayim, l'cheres olam, for an eternal redemption. Cheres olam doesn't mean that we're never going to go back to Mitzrayim in particular. Cheres olam means that all cheres, all redemption, is an expansion, a development, an unpacking of what happened by Yitzias Mitzrayim. This is why in the Haggadah, for example, and there's a lot of references to this, but in Haggadah, one of the strange paragraphs that we mention is the conversation, the Brayitz, the Mishnah, back and forth between Ben Zayma. That Ben Zayma said that he had a whole, with the Elazar ben Azariah, that Elazar ben Azariah said that he always wanted to prove the point that you should talk about Yitzias Mitzrayim at night. Right? And he could never prove it until Ben Zayma came with a drasha, and the Chum disagreed with Ben Zayma and said, no, the pasuk that you're trying to use as a proof that you should say Yitzias Mitzrayim, mention Mitzrayim at night, of Kol Yimei Chayecha, that's L'Havi L'Maisa Moshiach. The truth, this whole thing is strange why you're talking about that Pesach night. That the discussion over there between Ben Zayma and the Chacham Elazar ben Azariah is the mitzvah of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim every day and every night, not specific to Pesach night. But one of the reasons why you're even mentioning that is because of the point of the Chachamim, which is L'Havi L'Maisa Moshiach, that there's an inyan of remembering Yitzias Mitzrayim even when Mashiach comes. Although Mashiach is going to, that redemption, L'Chayra, would overshadow the redemption of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Right? So why is it necessary to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim even when Mashiach comes? Chazal even compare it to a mashal, to a person that was traveling the road, and he bumps into a certain wild animal and miraculously is saved, so he's all excited about that. And then a little bit later on, he bumps into an even more dangerous animal, and so by the time and he's saved from that as well, and so his celebration of the second danger, he completely forgets about the first one. So by the time Moshiach comes, it's going to be such a greater redemption than Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why even mention it? Well, the answer is, of course, you have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim when Moshiach comes, because even Moshiach is just an unpackaging of Yitzias Mitzrayim. It's all coming from Yitzias Mitzrayim. So that's the reason why we mention it. So that's what it means, that Moshiach is, again, that's Yitzias Mitzrayim is a cheres item, which means that on some level, what's going to be experienced, or the process of Moshiach, is going to have to be seen as nothing more than just like I said, a reflection and unpackaging of Yitzias Mitzrayim. But here's the problem. The problem is that the method, the type of geula that we experience with Yitzias Mitzrayim seems to be the exact, I can say opposite, but very different than the type of geula that Rebbeinu Shalom wants to do and is going to do, B'ez Hashem, with the coming of Mashiach. For example, and it might seem initially as a certain, like just a detail, but as we'll see in a second, it's not just a detail. It's a fundamental point. Yitzias Mitzrayim took place, as we know, b'chipazon, very quickly. I mean, we were there for 210 years. But Lamaisa, the pasuk describes it as b'chipazon. We had to quickly, when Parah gave us permission, the next morning we leave. As everyone knows, and not enough time to bake the bread. V'chulu, everything's b'chipazon. Even the night before, when they're eating Korban Pesach, they're eating with their shoes on, and their belts, and their coats, as if they're rushing out. It's b'chipazon. So Yitzias Mitzrayim, that gula is quickly, hastily, rushed even. Mitzad Sheni, Mashiach comes, the pasuk says, specifically now, that Ki loy b'chipazon sits there. You will not leave the final gullus quickly. It's going to happen Kima, slowly, not b'chipazon. Okay, so it's a little bit funny. If the coming of Mashiach is nothing more than a packaging of Yitzias Mitzrayim, well, I don't get it. Yitzias Mitzrayim happened b'chipazon, and Mashiach is going to come the opposite of b'chipazon. Now let's understand this. This is not just a side point. The inyan of Yitzias Mitzrayim happening b'chipazon is the very definition of an incomplete redemption. That's the very definition of why Yetzias Mitzrayim is incomplete. Take a look at Maramukah number 3. Okay, this is from the Shar Kavanis. This is from the Arizal in his drashas about Pesach. Now, I'm not going to be able to explain all of this, if any of it, but you'll see the basic idea. He's talking about the Maisa when Moshe Rabbeinu has his first prophetic experience by the burning bush. Yeah, so it says like this: the Moshe Rabbeinu b'mar hasneh. When Moshe Rabbeinu sees the vision of the sneh, the burning bush, Shobini Golos Mitzrayim, and that burning bush is the whole thing over there was a representation of the Golos. Haychayishev. Now, this was in Moshe Rabbeinu's mind. Kikivan she Yisrael shabaisi hadar garmul hustalkas hadas ha'elyon shemiyud havayas. Now again, I'm not going to be able to explain this, but just to hear the words. The Rizal said that the main damage that was the cause of Golos Mitzrayim. Again, we're not going to explain what this means or how it happened. It's not for now. But the main damage, the pagam, that was ultimately the reason for Golos Mitzrayim was because a damage that took place in the name of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Okay, whatever that means, however that happens, a pagam in Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, and we know that everything in Torah, a complete system is always 10. 10 is always a complete system, which means that on some level, again, whatever this means is not for now, there was some sort of pagam to the system, like the complete system of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, or in other words, like 10 Yud-Kei Vav-Keis. Now, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei equals numerically 26. 26 times 10 is 260. Therefore, in Moshe Rabbeinu's calculations, in order for the Gula to be complete, in order for us to fix the problem, we would have to have been in exile for 260 years. Imkain, Hemshech Yimei Galusam. So Moshe Rabbeinu's calculations were that the length of Galus should be Yeh Kimisbar Yudavayas, should be years corresponding to the 10 Yud-Kei Vav-Keis that were damaged, that, again, somehow that were the reason for the Galus, Asher Nestalko B'Avaynam, which were removed or damaged because of their Averis, Shehim B'Gematria Sar, which is the Gematria of 260. V'zeh Omar Kasaf, and this is the meaning where the pasuk says, by the burning bush of Ayar Hashem, that Hashem saw, Ki Sar Lirais, that Moshe Rabbeinu turned to see the burning bush. The first Shem is because it's an unnecessary an unnecessary word. Hashem saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was looking at the burning bush. That Moshe Rabbeinu turned to look. He looked. He turned to look. The answer is Kisar Liris is a remez that the Rabbanah Shalom understood that Moshe Rabbeinu was misunderstanding something in terms of how long Gola should be. Moshe Rabbeinu was under the impression that what? Kisar Liris, that the Golas is going to have to be 260 years. What Hashem is noticing is that the perspective, the vision, intellectual understanding of Moshe Rabbeinu, that Gola should be 260 years. And at that point, it was only 210 years, which means Golos is not over yet. It's incomplete. The damage has not been fully fixed. But this is where Hashem responds to Moshe. No. You're wrong. The end of Golos is not, you don't have to wait till 260 years. Rather, although the damage that was done, Kiviyachol, is in the name 10 Yud-Kei Vav-Keis, all you have to wait for is the completion of 10 Ekes. Eke is numerically the value of 21. 21 times 10 is 210. Right? The Hebrew Dushan, that's 210 years. And that's why in the story of the burning bush, when Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem, what name am I going to tell the Jewish people that they're getting out of Golos with? The answer is the name Eke, and that's the Chiddush. Now, what that means, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, damaging, is not for now. And what it means that instead of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it's the name Eke, we'll explain Mamash a little bit in a moment. But when you read this, it might seem, okay, Moshe was wrong. Moshe had a certain thought that the Golos is going to correspond to 10 Yud-Kei Vav-Keis. He was off, really it's 10 Ekes. Instead of 260, it's 210. But the truth is Moshe Rabbeinu was not wrong. Moshe Rabbeinu was not wrong. The Rizal explains, the Svarim HaKadoshim explain this as well, that the reason why Golos Mitzrayim was incomplete was because it was b'chipazim, because it was too early. Everyone knows it's a famous thing. Now, again, whatever this means also, it's hard to know. But the Rizal, it's attributed to the Rizal, that if the Jewish people waited any longer in Mitzrayim, right, they would have fallen to, they were already in the 49th level of impurity. They waited any longer, level 50, and then reboot the system, right? You have to start all over again, whatever that means. But what that statement of the Rizal, going back from the Zohar Kodesh, what that means is that Moshe Rabbeinu was right. If there was time, if we had the time to be able to wait, Galus Mitzrayim should have been 260 years, which would have given us enough time to fix year by year all the damage that was done. But because for a certain calculation, certain cheshbonos, the Jewish people were holding by a low place, the Rabban Shalom had to bring it a little bit premature. And although Moshe Rabbeinu was right, it should have been 260, the Rabban Shalom is saying, listen, I have no choice. We're going to make it early, 210. And because of that, although Mitzrayim was an amazing thing, it's by its very definition an incomplete redemption. Because of that, the chipazon, the hastiness of Gulas Mitzrayim meant that's by its very definition an incomplete redemption. This is why the name Eke is the one that's being used to explain why it's 210 years. Rashi already says from Chazal that when Hashem said the name Eke, he said Eke Asher Eke, I will be as I will be. And Rashi says, what does it mean? Eke means, Eke Asher Eke means, just like I'm with them in this Golus, so I'll be with them in future Golus. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, Da'il Tzar B'Shaita, why you have to bring up future Golus right now? So Hashem says, fine, just the name Eke. Don't tell them Eke Asher Eke. But you see right that the name Eke is a name that indicates I'm being with you, I'm going to take you out of Golus, but it means that there's still something left to work on, and it means you're going to have to go back into Golus. By the way, those extra 50 years is right now for now, but for those of us that have been following previous shiur and other series of Sunday morning, you'll appreciate this, that those 50-year difference between 210 and 260 correspond to the 5 Gilgulim, the 5 incarnations that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to have to come back in order to finish the job that he started with Galus Mitzrayim. Moshe, Moshe Bar Yochai, the Arizal, the Baal Shem, and Rabbi Nachman. Then each one, just as the name Yud Kei Vav Kei and Eke, each thing is a system of 10. It's a complete system. So that altogether is 50. That's also what it means when Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu by Har Sinai, when the sin of the golden calf was taking place, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Lech reid kishichas amcha, go and descend because your nation has sinned. So the Zohar Kodesh asks, what does it mean, Lech reid? What does it have to say, go and descend? Reid, go down. Go to the exit, go to the door and then go down. The word Lech is B'Gematria 50. Lech reid kishichas amcha is a hint that the reason why there's a problem right now, the reason why there's the Egel, is because of those missing 50 years. And it also is a remez that Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to have to go down 5 times, and each time, a completion of 10, and so that's the 50 times. So in other words, what we're seeing from here is that this inyan of Gulas Mitzrayim being b'chipazon is not just okay, it happens to be, it's a certain, Mitzrayim is going to be b'chipazon, and that's just a certain quality that Mitzrayim has. That's not a side point. That's a defining factor of the exile of the redemption of Mitzrayim, and that quality is the very definition. It's the very point of why it's an incomplete redemption. So here's the shiur. So again, going back, on the one hand, we've learned that Yetzias Mitzrayim is cheres olam. It's an eternal redemption. It's an eternal redemption, which means that the Geula is going to happen in a way that's reflective of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's where it's all coming from. That's the seed that the plant of all redemption comes from. But if the Gulas of Mitzrayim, if the redemption of Mitzrayim, if the very foundation, it's not a side point, the very nature of that redemption is that it's quickly, that it's before its time. So how could that possibly be the very foundation and the seed for eternal redemption? It doesn't make any sense. If chipazon, if the fact that it came quickly was just a side point, okay, fine, so it's a side point, whatever it is. That's not a side point. That's the the very nature of Yetzias Mitzrayim is such that it's b'chipazon, that it was before its time. How could a geula, whose definition is premature, be a root for eternal, fully developed redemptions? This is a pal. How could those two things go together? The truth is, more than that, based on this idea from the Arizal, what we see is a phenomenal concept, which is that there are things that have to be worked out for a geula to take place. It's not just again, when we're little kids, we have to sort of shed immature ways of thinking about Yiddishkeit. We think of it as, from the time we were kids, that we're bad boys and girls. So Hashem punishes us, we're in Galus. And we try to work on ourselves, and we try to ask forgiveness. And when Hashem finally has enough compassion, we'll say, fine, okay, come back. That's very childish, and it's just incorrect. Galus, like the Arizal pointed out, whatever it means, we don't know what it means, but it means something big. That the damaging of Yud Kei Vav Kei, who knows? There's stuff that have to be worked out, and every single moment, and every single second, every single minute, every single day, every single week, every single year, there is a certain aspect of tikkun, a certain aspect of rectification that's now accessible to us, and so things take time. Just like in Galus Mitzrayim, it should have been 260 years, corresponding to the gematria of the 10 Yud Kei Vav Kei, which means that every year of Galus Mitzrayim, every year of Galus Mitzrayim was a physical reality that was being presented to them based on one of the numerical values of those 10 Yud Kei Vav Kei. And their job during that year is to fix that particular aspect of the divine names. You can't jump the gun. It is what it is. This year, we're connected to the letter Yud of the 5th Yud Kei Vav Kei. You want to say a gula now, but you have a bunch of letters to fix. Those letters come with coming years. It is what it is. Every moment is an entire reality that is being presented to you to fix, and that reality is the only reality that you can fix right now. And soon, the conveyor belt of time is going to bring to you more things to fix. But it is what it is. You got to wait for those things to come. And that's what the Arizal is revealing to us, is that therefore when the Yitzis time took place early, it's not like Hashem finally said, okay, you know what, fine, let's go. It's not like that. It means that there was still stuff on the conveyor belt, broken, kalim, broken shards on the conveyor belt, still waiting to be fixed. And they weren't fixed yet. So we have to then go back. And we're not as big as those neshamas anymore. So now it takes much more time to fix that. What they can do in 1 year takes us hundreds of years. So that's just the way it is. So there's a certain din, there's a certain be'ita. That's what we talk about, Moshiach coming. There's a predestined time for Gula. Why is that? Why would there be a predestined time that no one knows about, only God knows about, a predestined time for Moshiach to come? What's Tam? He made up the whole idea of Galus is because we did something, we're bad boys and girls, we were kicked out of the house, and Hashem says, okay, you know what? If you apologize, I'll bring you back early, but if not, I have this certain date that I just decided randomly, in 2,000 years from now, that's going to be the time. It's not a random thing. Whatever the pagumim, whatever the damage, whatever divine realities need to be corrected and rectified by our specific mitzvahs in those specific moments, it's set up in certain times. And by the time that particular day of Be'ita comes our way by the conveyor belt, that's the last piece of glass. That's the last piece of broken pottery that we're able to fix. And so then, when that day comes, finished. So the problem is that what about the whole idea of davening for Moshiach, right? So according to this, what do you mean davening for Moshiach? You want Moshiach to come, b'meher v'yameinu amen? Why b'meher v'yameinu amen? That's what we had with Yitzis Mitzrayim. We had to go back, and it got even worse. So what does it mean, b'chalal? So there's such an idea as be'ita, but there's also an idea of achishana, right? That if we're worthy, we'll make it come quick. We already had such a thing by Yitzis Mitzrayim, and it backfired. Can't say it backfired, but you see, it's incomplete. You can't rush it. You can't rush it. So what do you want to? If you're baking something in the oven, especially when it comes to baking, where it's like an exact science, it says it has to be in the oven for 350 degrees for 40 minutes. You say, 30 minutes is good enough. It's not. It's not going to be fully cooked. It is what it is. Babies develop 9 months. That's the way it is. Too early is dangerous. So this whole so again, the two problems. Yitzias Mitzrayim, by its very definition, was a geula that was premature. It was too early. So the question is, how could a geula that's early be a seed for a geula that's supposed to be complete? How's that possible? And number two, if geula we see when it's brought early is incomplete, and the only way to have a full geula is to wait until the right time, until it's finished, until everything is taken care of, then what does it mean to be mitzapel yeshua? What does it mean to want Moshiach, to daven for Moshiach, to hope Moshiach comes right away? So that means that you're just hoping that the next moment is the be'ita. that has nothing to do with you. Like, okay, if it is, it is. If it's not, not. Like, what's the avoid of wanting Mashiach? What's the avoid of davening for Mashiach to come? Mashiach should come the right time. When a woman is pregnant, no one davens that the woman should just give birth as soon as possible. Chas v'shalom, we say it should be b'shal tov matzlachas. It should be the right time, the right way. So that's and by Mashiach, it's not a matter of davening for that. It's for sure going to be the right time. When the conveyor belt is finished, it's finished. It's just the whole inning of Tzipis Yeshua. It's a pella. Okay, and by the way, and this is a big kasha on Pesach. So all of Pesach again is celebrating its season time. What is celebrating its season time for? You should have waited another 50 years. And the whole thing of Seder night is that the first half of Seder night talks about Yitzis Mitzrayim. The second half of Seder night with Kashel Yo and so on is talking about Mashiach. Already from the beginning of the Seder, we're already seeing about Mashiach. Hashat ha'ach, Lashon haba b'Ardi Yisrael, Hashat ha'avdin, Lashon haba b'nei Chayrin. There's a Mashiach-dika vibe, there's a Mashiach-dika energy by Seder night, right? And that's all because Yitzis Mitzrayim is the root of Gula. Yitzis Mitzrayim is the root of a premature, underdeveloped, half-baked Gula. So how does a Gula Shlema come from that? And how do we daven for Mashiach if we need Mashiach to be complete? Okay. All right, so now we need to get back into Ishbitz. Take a look at Maramok number 4. Okay, so the answer to all of this is going to be Paraduma. Okay, how so? So this is from Sayyid Yisharim. Sefer Sayyid Yisharim is from the Ishbitzer's grandson. It's in Parshas Par, section of Parshas Par Oischez. So it goes like this. It says in Pasuk, B'itchu ba'Hashem adayad, ki b'koah Hashem tzurei lam. It's a hard pasuk to translate, but B'itchu ba'Hashem adayad, trust in Hashem forever and ever. Ki b'koah Hashem tzurei lamim, I guess a simple translation, because Hashem is the one that formed all worlds. Hashem is the one that created all the worlds. So you might as well trust in Him. Now, but Chazal darshan like this because they're bothered with the double lashon ki b'ka Hashem tzorei lam. Ki Hashem tzorei lam. Ki b'ka Hashem tzorei lam. So Chazal darshan ki b'ka Hashem tzorei lam means that Hashem created the world with the letters Yud K. Letters ki b'ka Hashem tzorei lam. That Hashem used Yud K to create the world. So there's two problems with that. First of all, it doesn't seem to be true. Hashem used all 4 letters Yud K Vav K to create the world. It says all the Svarim bring this. It's a well-known thing. Yismuch hashamayim v'sagal aretz. The heavens should rejoice and the earth should be happy. Yismuch hashamayim is Yud K. V'sagal aretz is Vav K. Yud K always corresponds to the spiritual world, and Vav K corresponds to the physical world. So Hashem used Yud K Vav K to create the whole world, physical and spiritual and physical. So ki b'ka Hashem tzorei lam is incorrect. It's half of the universe was created with Yud K, but what about the bottom half of the world? It's Vav K. Aleph. Beis. What does that have to do with the first part of the pasuk? B'itchu b'Hashem adayad, to trust in Hashem forever and ever because he used the letters Yud K. What does one do with the other? Okay, Ubir b'zeh Adoni Meir Zatzal. So the Sayyid Yisharim quotes from his grandfather. It's like this: Shabatuchais shel Yisrael. Where does Jewish confidence come from? It's a major subject in Ishbitz. Says confidence, Jewish confidence. And that's what the word bitachon. By us, we usually translate as trust in Hashem. In Ishbitz, bitachon means confidence. Tekifus, it means, it's like, even in Israeli Hebrew, bitachon is like insurance policy. It's like betach. For sure. Huh? Betach, right, betach, confidence, right. So he says like this, Shabituchais shel Yisrael. So where does Jewish bitachon come from? Usually we tend to think that what you're confident in is something that you're in control of, right? I could be rest assured that I'm going to hold on to this jacket because I'm wearing it. If you're holding on my jacket, then I can't be sure I'm going to get it. Maybe you'll last. Maybe you'll want to run away with it. But something that I'm holding on to, it's mine. I have confidence in. I have confidence that it's okay. Says the Ishbitzer, that's the opposite by a Yid. By a Yid, what gives us confidence is the realization that everything the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us, he's still holding on to. He's still holding on to. There's not one thing that the Rebbeinu Shalom gives the world, gives reality, and then lets go of. There's nothing that he fully gives us. He's always holding on to the strings. He's always holding on to it. And that's what gives us confidence, he says. The ikar confidence that you didn't have is is only with the realization that whatever you have is still being held on to by the Rebbeinu Shalom. Chazal already say this by the luchas, that the luchas were given, they were 6 by 6 by 6. The luchas were given in such a way that Hashem Tiviyachol was holding on to 2 tefachim, Moshe Rabbeinu was holding on to another 2 tefachim, and 2 tefachim in the middle. Right? And so that visual of the luchas being given in such a way, that is what gives a Jew confidence. Whatever you have, you could be confident in because it's not fully yours. And the Rebbeinu Shalom never gives you anything completely. The Rebbeinu Shalom is always holding on to the other half of it. He explains. You see this from a Gemara Brachas. The Gemara says, Haroya Malchi Yisrael, the Gemara says halacha, that if you see a Jewish king, there's a special bracha to say, Omer Baruch Shecholak Mikvaydi Leirev, blessed be Hashem, who Shecholak, who gave of a portion of his honor to those that fear him. Malchi U'Masa'olam, Omer, if you see a non-Jewish king, there's also a bracha a little slightly different. Omer, you say, Baruch Shenosan Mikvaydi Lebri Yosef, blessed be Hashem, who gave of his kavod to his creations. Now, by a Jewish king, the language is cholak, chelek. Mashenkin, by a Goyish king, it's nasan. What's the difference? Hainu. Ki nasan moira shekvar nigmar hanesina lehem ve'ein oid bezel Hashem yisbarach shum chiber v'shitav. The word nasan indicates that it was given and finished. It was given, and it's no longer by the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's now completely by the non-Jewish king. That's the non-Jewish king's perspective. Aval chelek, the word shecholak means Myra sheyesh adayin l'Hashem yisbarach chelek shud v'zichir v'zeh. Cholak means the Rebbeinu Shalom is giving you a portion of it. It means it's still the Rebbeinu Shalom. I'm just letting you hold on. Umizeh she'Hashem yisbarach meshutaf im Yisrael, and said the Ishbitzer, from the fact that the Rebbeinu Shalom is still meshutaf, he has never let go of anything he's given us. It might sound kiviyachol as if it's like, the Rebbeinu Shalom is being stingy. Like, why is he not allowing us to just grab it and run with it? The answer is, this is our main confidence. Why? You see, because as soon, kiviyachol, if you could imagine, like conceptually, if the Rebbeinu Shalom were to give us something completely, then it's already set with rules. See, when something is still by the Rebbeinu Shalom, it means it's still by the manufacturer, and it could still be changed. Nothing is set. Once it's given over, once it leaves, once you drive it out of the lot, finished. Then there's they don't have responsibility anymore. It's not your responsibility, and it is what it is. It is what it is. If if Chas v'Shalom, the Rebbeinu Shalom would have made the world in such a way where whatever it is that he's making is done, it's finished, it's a certain sense of completion and disconnected from the source, that means that whatever it is, and it's unchanging, it's unchangeable. The biggest chesed in the world is that the Rebbeinu Shalom made the world in such a way where nothing is disconnected from its source, nothing is finished. Nothing is finished, nothing is detached, nothing therefore is completely rigid. Everything is therefore malleable. What we think of as absolute is not absolute. Logic itself is not absolute. As I gave this example before, 1 + 1 is 2. That reality, that construct of 1 + 1 is 2 is something that God created, but he did not give it over to us completely. He doesn't give anything over to us completely, which means that as rigid as it might seem to us as 1 + 1 is 2, Lav Dafka doesn't have to be. Not only does it not have to be before the world was created, it doesn't have to be right now. Because even right now, that logical construct has not left Hashem's hands. It's still by the manufacturer, so to speak. And this is the reality of all miracles. All miracles function like this. The Rebbeinu Shalom is not breaking. He's not like, okay, you know what? He gave us the world, and he created nature, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says, okay, you know what? They're really messing this up. I have to step in. It's not stepping in. The whole thing was never released. It's all still part of the Rebbeinu Shalom, which means, so he brings it down like all the way. Hainu. He says like this. Shafilu hanefesh yersa gadol Yisrael. Now this is a classic Ishbitzer Inyan, which is also Breslov as well, that this could be a source of confidence on the one hand, or a source of, what's the word? Can't say fear, but a source of the opposite of confidence, but not in a bad way. Humility? Anxiety is already bad. Humility, yeah, a certain sense of humility. You'll see what I mean. You'll see it together. Maybe you think of a better word or a word. Shafil hanefesh yersa gadol Yisrael, which means that even the biggest neshama, the biggest tzaddik in the world, ein lev men lispar, has nothing to be mispar about, has nothing to sit back on his laurels and say, you know what, I'm the biggest person in the world. You know why? Because of everything that I've done in my entire life until this point. And I have no reason to think that whatever has happened in my life until this point is there. It's not moving anywhere. It is what it is. It's already in the past. And past is. And so I'm therefore going to carry with that reality absolute to the next day. And when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm still going to be the Tzaddik Yisod Ha'olam. Why? Because I was Tzaddik Yisod Ha'olam yesterday. The answer is, there is nothing that's certain. There is nothing that's certain. Whatever is given to us as rigid and as defined and as concrete as it might seem, it's still two tfachim of it is still in the Rebbeinu Shalom's hands, which means that there is nothing that's certain. Your past isn't certain. The gifts that a person has in the past are not certain. Now it's an overwhelming truth to process sometimes. So it says like this. So the biggest neshama in the world has to see this. Ein lan ma lisbar. V'tzarech liyas miyad medugal b'yira. And therefore the biggest tzaddik in the world always has to be wrapped up in Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem, it's hard to translate in Ishbitz what Yiras Hashem means. The Ishbitz just says, there's a vart that he said, the carbon taida, which is a thanksgiving offering, right? That the miracle happens to a person, they're saved, whoever it is, you bring a carbon taida. The carbon taida is only eaten one day. It's only one day, which is very unique. Most karbanis, at least 2 days and so on, especially shlamim. Yeah. So why is a carbon taida only that day? So the Ishbitzer said, because a miracle happens to you, no leftovers. No leftovers. Just because it happened, just because you had a good day, not a guarantee that you're going to be able to carry it over tomorrow. So, and his lashon is, you're maid al over, you thank Hashem for the past, v'tzayik al asid, and you scream and you daven for tomorrow. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees. That's an overwhelming Inyan. But he says, kach, and the opposite is also true. But on the other hand, the biggest neshama in the world can't rely on their accomplishments of yesterday, and the smallest neshama in the world can't give up because of their lack of accomplishments of yesterday. And to say, where's my help going to come? What am I? Look at my history. Look at my kochas nefesh. I have nothing. What do you mean nothing? If everything is still in God's hands, and the Rebbeinu Shalom is infinite, and nothing has settled, nothing has concretized yet, so Memela, everything is possible. Everything is possible. There's a Sikh from Lubavitch Rebbe used to say this also. In Lubavitch Rebbe, there's no one that was more in our times. It was more about I don't care at all what you accomplish. It's all about what you're going to do weiter. There's Lubavitch Rebbe, right? There's countless stories of or videos. People coming to the Rebbe, or shluchim bringing their biggest donors, right? People that have donated $1 million, whatever it is, and they're expecting at least a shkayach, at least yashakayach. And what does the Rebbe always say? Okay, so give more. Now you give you a bracha, you should give double, something like that. There's no yashakayach. Why? What in the world does yes you have to do it tomorrow? Nothing is concrete. Nothing is everything is still b'yad Hashem. Everything is still b'yad Hashem. This is the meaning. Ki b'kah Hashem tzurei lamed. Bidchu b'Hashem adiyad. The source of bitachon, the source of Jewish confidence is what? Is because even though it might seem to us that there's Yud K, which is the manufacturer, and there's Vav K, which is what is when you drive it off the lot. But the truth is, that's all from our perspective. The truth is, Ki b'kah Hashem tzurei lamed. The truth is, it's Yud K and it's still Yud K. Everything is still by the manufacturer, and that's why a Jew could have bitachon. That's why a Jew could have confidence in this world and not give up and not assume that everything is what it is, because you're always b'yad Hashem. Always b'yad Hashem means that anything is possible. Anything is possible. There's nothing that's concrete. Ukimavur b'zayir, like the Zohar says, al mi'ilah b'yud K. Again, like we said, I mentioned in the beginning, the higher world is Yud K, v'al matata b'vav K, and the lower world is Vav K. And there seems to be this mechitza between the two, right? So there's before creation, that's Yud K, and then there's after creation, that's Vav K, and it is what it is. And there seems to be like that wall. Amru zal b'medrash, b'chazal say in the Medrash Geheles, Machatzti vani erpa, says the Medrash, the simple translation of the pasuk is Machatzti, I cause damage, vani erpa, and I will heal. But the Chazal say, Mechitza she'asisi, this mechitza that I've created, shall yoinim kayomen, that the higher world live forever. Malachim, and so in the higher world, there's no death. V'tachtoin mesim, the lower world, there's death. And he said, that mechitza, I'm going to heal. I'm going to heal. And the entire inyan, there being a divide between Yud-K and Vav-K, is b'chlal only our perspective. The truth is, B'tchu Hashem aliyad, ki b'ka Hashem tzor lamim. And this is the secret of Paraduma. The secret of Paraduma is what? Is that even death itself is not certain. Even death itself is not final. There is nothing that's absolute. This is why Paraduma is the classic chayk, right? It's the absolute chayk. It's the one mitzvah that it's I can't say it's the only mitzvah, but it's the representative mitzvah. It's a mitzvah that represents that whole category of mitzvahs that the human mind cannot comprehend. Mesi Kasha, the Rabbanan Shalom made the human mind. So why did he not give us the capabilities of understanding those mitzvahs? The answer is that's what the mitzvahs are. The point of those mitzvahs is to indicate that it's not fully yours. The seichel is not fully yours. Mitzvahs are not fully yours. These are mitzvahs which represent this inyan, that bring to light this point that nothing is fully given to us. If it's fully given to us, then you should be able to understand it. The fact that it's given to us in such a way that you can't understand it means it's not fully yours. You're not able to be typhus it. You're not able to mentally grasp it in full because it's not fully yours. And therefore, Dafka the Paraduma, which is the mitzvah that represents our lack of control over the gift of Torah, is also the mitzvah that brings purification from death itself. Death is a result of one of the most absolute realities that we could all conceive of, which is time itself. Time is absolute. It is what it is, You can't go back in time. Father Time always wins, right? And when things are bound to time means that you're moving away from the beginning. If you move away from the beginning, it means you're moving towards the end. Death is an automatic reality once there's a concept of time. That's, in a certain sense, how time is gauged, is measured based on things deteriorating on a certain level. So time itself, time and death are bound to each other. If there's such a phenomenon that's called paraduma, to purify from death, it means that even the biggest concrete, the most basic, Bereshis bara lakim, and as the Vilna Gaon Taich, Bereshis means the very first creation. That's the bedrock of all the creations, is time itself, Reshis, beginnings, middles, and ends. That concept of time itself, that itself is not fully given to us. That's also not fully given to us. It's also still biyad Hashem. And it's still malleable. B'tchu Hashem adayad. So he says like this, Sheyesh b'tzviyasas dvarim ke'ela shenir lehem legamri b'li tikkun. And therefore it might seem to a person that there are certain things that they've done in the past, for example, that cannot be fixed. It is what it is. Guy doesn't have error many times. They're in lifestyle and they think that tshuva is impossible, that it's been taken away from them. That despair itself, to think that what's done is done and it cannot be fixed, that itself is the tumas mace. That's the tumah that comes from death itself. So he says in the next line, L'kach number 8, so that's the 8 of what? That's what paraduma means. I know sheyed adam shapir, that a person should know sheyesh makim she'en yad magasham, that you don't know everything. The Torah was given to you in a way that you can't fully understand it. Why would Hashem do that? The answer is because it's not fully yours. Whoa. If the Torah is not fully ours and everything is created from the Torah, that means that nothing is fully ours. It means everything is still connected to the manufacturer. Everything is still Yud-K. If everything is still Yud-K, it means that it's not bound to the rules and regulations of our perspective of Vav-K. Take a look at Maramok number 5, based on all of this. The Man Shiloach in Chelik Aleph on Maseches Brachas Chazayin and Beis. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, Rav Tzoli Shel Shabbos Ber Shabbos. The Gemara says, a few more minutes, it's already getting late, but the Gemara says that Rav was the one that was Mechadish. The Rav revealed this idea that although during the 6 days of the week it's good to daven Ma'ariv late when it's already nightfall, so you could say Shema the proper time, But by Friday night, in order to be Makabel Shabbos early, you could daven Ma'ariv early. Rav Tzoli Shel Shabbos be'erev Shabbos. Rav daven Shabbos, davening Ma'ariv of Kabbalah Shabbos and so on. Friday night, he davened early. Zeh Shomar Kasav. Said the Ishbitzer, what's the secret of that Gemara? What's Rav revealing to us in Pnimius? Zeh Shomar Kasav. This is the meaning of the pasuk. Karva el nafshi ga'olah. We say this by L'chadaydi. That Hashem, you have brought geula early to me. Karva el nafshi. You have brought geula to my soul. What does that mean? Ki Hashem yisbarach yachol l'karev ha'iten. Everything is still biyad Hashem. There is nothing that's absolute. Time itself is not absolute. If Hashem wants time to speed up, if Hashem wants to bring a predestined time earlier, that's also possible. That's also possible. Kach tzoli Rav the Shabbos be'erev Shabbos. And this is the meaning of Rav davening Shabbos, erev Shabbos. If it's erev Shabbos, it's not Shabbos yet. What does it mean to daven Shabbos davening when it's still erev Shabbos? The answer is paraduma. Paraduma says that time itself is a construct that has not been fully given over to us. Which means that although there's such a phenomenon as time, which means that those moments which have yet to come, those shards that are still waiting on the other end of the conveyor belt, and we have no choice but to wait till they make their way to our moment, that's a construct that it's only from Vav K. But the truth is, it's still B'yad Hashem. And if it's still B'yad Hashem, it means, paradoxically, I don't know how this will happen, but somehow, in some way, the Rebbe Hashem could get those moments stopped now. And there's such a thing as Be'it Achishena. Be'it Achishena doesn't mean that there's two options. Either Mashiach will come in its right time, after we fix every single piece of time on the conveyor belt, or the Rebbe Hashem will say, you know what, okay, don't worry about that stuff, we're being Gula right now. No, that's not the pshat. The pshat of Be'it Achishena is that somehow, in some way, those moments that have yet to come will come quicker. Will come quicker. What does that mean? I have no idea. It's paradum, it's a chayk. That's what it means. That's the secret of Be'it Achishena. This is why when the Jew davens that Moshiach should come b'mehera, Moshiach should come quickly, that's one of the biggest expressions of Amunah. Because when you're davening for Moshiach to come quickly, what basically you're saying is, Ein oid milvadi, that everything is still in God's hands. Time itself is still in God's hands. There is nothing that's set. There's nothing in my life, there's nothing in the universe that I can say, it is what it is, disconnected from God, it just has its own rules and regulations. When you're davening for Mashiach to come quickly, that is the biggest expression of Emunah. Because what you're saying is that nothing is outside of God's jurisdiction. Even time itself is not outside of His jurisdiction. Take a look at Marmukah number 6. From the Tiferes Yosef, again, this is a great-grandson of the Ishbitzer, on Maseches Tainis. Ubir b'zeh adoni zekenim over Rabbi Zatzal. So again, also from the Ishbitzer, that the Ishbitzer taught, Shagula hasid aliyas b'mehera, the coming of Mashiach, which is going to be, B'ez Hashem, mehera, quickly, Yi al de avodas Yisrael. It's going to come quickly because of our avodah. We're going to do avodah to bring Mashiach quickly. And he said the pasuk, "Va'olu Mashiach b'Har Tzion, lishpat es Har Esav." It's a Kavaldig Adiyik. It says that the saviors will come to Har Tzion, right, to judge the Har Esav. Noishem lo ynemer. It doesn't say those that are being saved will make their way to Eretz Yisrael. Right? It's describing Klal Yisrael. That Klal Yisrael will get to Eretz Yisrael. Mashiach comes. So how would you describe us with Mashiach? Noishem, those that have been saved. But it doesn't say that Elo Meshiach, the ones that are saving. Meaning, Hainu Shadei Avodas, because of our Avodas Hashem, Ya'nechshem Kilu Hey Mashiach Satzman. It'll be as if we brought the redemption ourselves. And so that's what the Ishbitzer said. And then the Ishbitzer said, and what exactly is the biggest avodah we can do in order for Mashiach to come quickly? So he says, Sha'idei hakivoy v'hatzipoy she'yisor mekavu miyach l'tamad al-gula she'tiyah b'meher v'yameinu nechshel kilu hey Mashiach satzman. The biggest avodah, one of the biggest avodas we can do is to daven and to hope and to pray that Mashiach will come quickly. And by praying and hoping that Mashiach will come quickly, that's such a big avodah that will make it that when Mashiach comes, it's mamish because of us. What's the big avodah of wanting Mashiach to come quickly? Well, who wouldn't want Mashiach to come quickly? The answer is the oimik of that tefillah that Mashiach should come meher v'yameinu is not just like not just for Hashem to say, okay, you know what, Ganuk Shain, 210 years is good enough. No. It means that you're able to reveal that even within 210 years, you could still have 260 years. How? I have no idea. But God can do it. Eina Uvada, he can do it. This is what it means, let's go back to the beginning. This is what it means that Pesach, despite the fact that Pesach was redemption that was quick, it was bichipazin, it was hastily, it was only 210, and it did not make its way to 260, that is still capable of being the root of all redemptions. Because, how could it be? If we want the full redemption to be complete, which means you have to wait till everything on the conveyor belt passes by you, and yet the root of that redemption is Mitzrayim, which is what? Which is a redemption that came early. So how do those two things go together? The answer is Parshas Parah. The answer is Parshas Parah, because Parshas Parah tells you that time itself is a construct that's still B'yad Hashem. Time itself, which results in death, which results in contamination, it itself can be changed. And that mitzvah itself, as we all know, that the parah, contaminates the pure, purifies the impure. It's a chayik, it doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly the point, because even everything that we have, we don't have full control over. If you have full control over something, it means you understand it. If you don't understand something, it means you don't have full control over it. And that's exactly what Paraduma is. And all this is rooted in Purim. What's Purim? Nature itself was shown to be still B'yad Hashem. On its most basic level, that's what Purim is. Right? Hashem created the world of nature, and nature goes. And Haman, Kiyad al Kes Ka, Milcham al Hashem Ba'amalek Min Dar Dar. Amalek comes and tries to deepen that mechitza between Yud K and Vav K, right? That's what Amalek is about. And Kiyad al Kes Ka, Milcham al Hashem Ba'amalek Min Dar Dar. Hashem says, I'm going to bring the Yontiv of Purim to destroy Amalek by revealing this truth that all there is Yud K. The Arizal said that when Moshiach comes, the name Yud K Vav K will be redefined as Yud K Yud K. Because that's what Purim revealed us. Purim began this revelation that what you think is fully baked and fully given over to the world, and Hashem has relinquished control over, it's still B'yad Hashem. Nature is B'yad Hashem. The Goyrol of Haman, which is complete coincidence, was being decided by the Rebbeinu Shalom. That light of Purim manifests itself, takes it to the next level in Para, which is, forget nature. Time itself is still manipulable. It could be Be'itach Yishen at the same time. And that's how you could celebrate Pesach in full and really embracing Pesach as the beginning of a full redemption. And Pesach, therefore, is the yontif that gives us the capability of wanting Moshiach now, b'meher v'yameinu. That's why one of the I'm just thinking about this now. One of the Adir, right? At the end of the Seder night, the end of the Haggadah. So how does it go? B'meher v'yameinu, right? That's one of the. It's written as a nigun, so nigunim repeat themselves, but it's very strange for there to be a nusach of b'meher v'yameinu. Just quickly. And what does it have to do with Pesach? What does it have to do with Gul? We're describing Geula, the Geula Shlema. The Geula Shlema should be Meher V'Yamein. Because that's the secret of Geula. Be'itach Yishana, that what should take 260 years, can be condensed in 210. How does that work? There's a certain time frame of conveyor. It has to move. That's Paraduma. Nope. So Hashem should help us as we prepare ourselves, getting ready for Pesach, we mechazik ourselves. There's nothing in this world that's fully ours. And that, for a guy, is terrifying. But for a year, with Nishmas Yisrael, that's the root of confidence. We should be zeicha to embrace that, to have the Tahara of the Parshas Parah, and be zeicha to see the Gula Shlema V'Amitis, B'meher V'Yameinu Amen. Amen.